Please don't catcall me unless you're attractive. Unless you're a 7, 8, 9, or 10. If you're a 10, you're probably not catcalling. But don't do it. I don't want none of that. I don't want none of that unless you're sexy.
Oh, I am a woman. Haven't you heard of feminism? Don't you catcall me? Don't you objectify my body? Unless you're good looking. I want to be absolutely clear here. Hitting on me, making comments about my body, that is absolutely inappropriate. Unless you're sexy. Sorry, I might be a bit out of date, but are we still meant to pretend that women never utilize their appearance, never sexualize an interaction, never flirt with a man to gain a strategic advantage? Like, are we all meant to still commit to that lie? Or is the evidence making it pretty hard to deny?
Get whatever I want, make him buy me flowers, make him open the door for me, always make him pay the bill, never open my own doors. People are always saying that they're literally obsessed with my energy. Guys are always saying that they want to date me. If no one ever taught you how to make men and people worship you like you're a literal goddess, and I say this literally works, an easy way to do that is to wear skirts or dresses all the time. You want to walk into a room with all of your energy on you, thinking about how obsessed you are with yourself, thinking about how amazing your life is, thinking about how beautiful you look. You want to envision yourself as literal royalty, because people give princess treatment to people who are special, people who are royal. Women who are in their feminine energy always talk about what they would like, what would please them, and that basically tells other people what to do.
Constantly talk about what you want, because that's what tells everybody else what to do. It's beautiful and horrifying in its simplicity. I do not envy you guys who have to work in corporate environments, who have to navigate this minefield with female co-workers and all the sexual harassment stuff. It seems like a nightmare. I looked it up. So what would be your guess of all of the sexual harassment claims that are made in the workplace? What percentage do you think are successful? It turns out just 28%, which means 72% of the time they're just dismissed. Like 2/3 of them are just thrown out. I mean, is it possible that sometimes women might use sexual harassment regulations strategically for their own benefit? Could that happen? I mean, there is data that shows that over 40% of the time when a sexual harassment claim is lodged, it's at the same time as a retaliation charge for being fired. That could be a coincidence. And the reason why the 28% figure is so low is because these kinds of allegations are very hard to prove. This kind of harassment can happen behind closed doors. But when I looked into it, it turns out that the experts actually think that that 28% figure is inflated. It skews the numbers upwards because it includes all the cases where companies are willing to settle. In that sense, the woman has been successful in her claim, but the company doesn't admit any fault. They might just want the whole thing to go away. I mean, just looking at incentives, you'd have to wonder why a woman in the workplace wouldn't strategically use sexual harassment claims. She has the cultural narrative behind her that women are victims, that men are scumbags, and best of all, there's no consequences for her if it's proved later that she was lying.
All these women who be accusing men of stuff that they come out and it was never true, they never get locked up. But if I accuse you right now, believe me, it's gonna be an investigation on you. I don't know why. It's just, I'm telling you, they don't care about men in society.
Now, let me be clear. I do not mean to suggest that sexual harassment in the workplace does not occur or that it's not serious. The Me Too movement did bring to light some genuinely troubling stories. And I am confident that none of us want innocent people, the women that we care about in our lives, to be taken advantage of. And so, from a philosophical perspective, do we want to prevent women from being sexually harassed? Of course. And so women had their moment in the culture and on social media with Me Too, bringing to light the fact that current sexual harassment regulations are not protecting women. And I'm on board. I completely agree with that. But here's the really interesting question that nobody's asking, which is that if we admit that the current system does not work, that it's not protecting women, then why don't we change it? These laws, these regulations have been in place since the 1970s. They're clearly not working. The problem has not been solved, so why do we keep trying the exact same thing? Why isn't there an appetite to reform these rules? Why are women so protective of sexual harassment laws that they themselves admit do not work? The short answer is power, leverage, and pride. refusing to admit that doing things men's way is better? The long answer is the rest of this video, so keep watching because this one's fascinating.
Because of the whole Me Too movement, it's so easy for women to fall back on that as an excuse. It's not necessarily that they shouldn't be held accountable for their own actions. It's more so that the media's made it really easy for them to use it as a scapegoat.
Okay, here's what you need to understand. This is the crux of the whole issue. Sexual harassment regulations are not clear. They are vague, they are ambiguous, they are subjective, they are feminine, and that is by design. If the regulations were masculine, there would be no confusion. The regulations would be clear. You can't say these words, you can't ask these questions, you can't touch these body parts. If you do, here are the guaranteed consequences. Absolute clarity, black and white, enforceable by the judicial system. Sounds good, right? Except women didn't want that. They didn't want there to be objective rules. They wanted there to be regulations based on their subjective experience. Not a case of, did he cross the line, but did I feel like he crossed the line? Did he make me uncomfortable? Now, that can be confusing when what is and is not harassment can change so quickly based on which man is doing the behavior. But as a protective impulse, I can actually understand it. Truly, she doesn't want her feelings to be dismissed, as though that's not relevant evidence. She goes to HR and she says, he's staring at me. The way he's looking at me just makes me so uncomfortable. And the guy might genuinely be a scumbag. But the HR person who's just working to the letter of the law says there's nothing we can do. It's not against the rules to look at people. Women were scared of that happening, and so they created an architecture of regulations that were based around their feelings. Her subjective experience, that was what was placed front and center. But women did not think this through. Accusations of sexual harassment are very serious. When we remove objective criteria as the only admissible evidence, we should not be surprised when toxic women take advantage of the ambiguity. There's too much upside and too little downside. Just following the incentives, this was inevitable. And you know who isn't surprised? Women. Women know what other women can be like. This woman's husband was hit on by his female co-worker, and this is what happened next.
We work together. This is inappropriate. Then she threatens him and is like, you've used me. Like, you have led me on just so you could get this position. I'm going to make sure you don't get it. Like, I'm going to let my company know. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, you've been inappropriate. So that's when my husband's like having to get his boss involved now, right? Because now she's turned it completely around.
So ask yourself this question. How is a situation like this going to get resolved? When it's a he said, she said, is there going to be a careful weighing of the facts? Is there going to be a diligent application of due process? No chance. In a system that is built on ambiguity and subjective interpretation, it's never going to be about truth. It's always going to be about power. No wonder the genuine scumbag male bosses don't face consequences when they harass the young female interns, because he's more powerful. She says that he did this, he says he didn't, or says that it was a joke, or she misunderstood. It's all subjective, and so it's just going to be decided on a popularity contest. The outcome is going to be determined by social capital or who makes the most money for the company. In a feminine model of subjective ambiguity, it is the low status female employees who are going to suffer. The juniors, the interns. They are the least powerful and therefore the most likely to face injustice. But that sucks. They're the most vulnerable. Those are the exact people who need protecting. If we made the regulations masculine with objective criteria, it would give those women actual weapons to fight back. It's so obvious, but then why don't women want to reform these rules? What benefit is there to maintaining the status quo? Well, think about how typical men, just innocent, average, normal men, have to act when these are the regulations that governs workplace interactions.
Be careful, watch your wording, because sexual harassment, being in HR, sexual harassment is a very big thing, and it doesn't matter how you perceive it, but others. So you really, really have to watch your wording.
What better way to entrench your power and to get ahead as a woman than to make sure that all of the men around you are constantly having to walk on eggshells? What power, what leverage that gives you. The truth is that Even though the current system is obviously at the expense of genuine victims of sexual harassment, it brings huge benefits to powerful women, women who are already at manager plus level, ambitious women, women who have no issue lying and manipulating to get ahead. They love the vagueness of the current system. It gives them an extraordinary tactical advantage because not knowing exactly what the rules are or where exactly the line is that he's not allowed to cross, that forces every single man to constantly be on edge, to second guess himself and show extreme deference to how a woman feels, how she perceives his behavior. But realistically, this is not sustainable. I know that it's an accurate reflection of the current cultural moment that we live in, where we just worship the ground that women walk upon. But in the long term, how can we realistically expect men to continue to work in these vague circumstances with this threat, this danger looming over their heads?
If men don't hire women, do I think that's okay?
Yeah, just for the
Yeah,
reason
I
that they're
think it's
women.
fine.
Like, if every single male CEO didn't hire a woman,
Yeah, I'm
like,
fine with it.
would you like it? Would you say that you like it? I'm curious.
I think that if
What do you
it
think
could
is
be-
positive for society?
Yeah, so I think if it could be demonstrated that the risk is highly mitigated somehow through some set course of laws or values, and now suddenly women don't pose more of a risk towards men in the workplace who happen to be their superiors, then I would be fine with it. But since that is not the case, I have no problem with men selecting who they want to hire and who they don't want to hire. And by the way, who the hell is anybody to tell anybody who they need to hire for their business anyway? It's none of your damn business. It's literally none of your damn business. If a man says, I don't want to hire any women just because they're women, why the hell is that any of your business?
I can speak
guess it's
from
the
experience.
government's
My
experience.
partner and I own a company and we now don't hire women because they mess us around so much. So we actually we avoid it
Well, it's the
at all
same thing in the
costs.
content creation world.
Where I'm sitting, this can easily be a bipartisan issue that both men and women agree to. Changing the criteria from subjective to objective. It protects innocent men from false accusations, and it punishes guilty men whose misconduct can be proven. And it also limits the damage that a toxic woman can do with lies, while at the same time empowering genuine female victims to seek justice. I'm guessing that most of you guys are on board. The question is, can we get women to agree? Can we actually make some changes and reform this thing? Well, sadly, there's just one last hurdle, and that's pride. Because in order to make this change, women would philosophically have to make the concession that the masculine way of doing things is actually going to deliver better outcomes for women. That's huge. That challenges their identity, their competence, their assumed superiority, and it's going to undermine the double standards that exist that give them the privileges that they enjoy. There will be a knock-on effect that would diminish female power, and that's why they don't like it. But why would it imply all of those things? How exactly would this unfold? What are the philosophical implications? That's what I want to spend the rest of this video talking about. I try and keep the YouTube videos brief, but I really like going into depth on this stuff. If you like getting deep with this stuff, you like seeing the patterns and making the connections, really understanding it, and you're going to want to keep watching this video, please come join me on Patreon.